First ladies are often seen as ceremonial figures, hosting parties and smiling for cameras. But throughout American history, some first ladies wielded enormous power, changed laws, transformed social movements, and shaped the nation as profoundly as their presidential husbands. Today we'll explore every first lady who changed America forever, from revolutionary heroines to modern political powerhouses. Martha Washington set the template for all first ladies who followed. During the Revolutionary War, Martha spent winters with George Washington at military encampments including Valley Forge in 1777 to 1778. She organized officers' wives to sew uniforms, knit socks, and nurse wounded soldiers. Martha turned headquarters into hospitals, personally caring for dying men. Her presence at Valley Forge during the brutal winter boosted troop morale immeasurably. Soldiers saw that even the commander's wife shared their suffering. Martha established that the First Lady's role included supporting troops and their families, a tradition continuing 250 years later. Abigail Adams was America's first feminist First Lady. While John Adams served in Congress and diplomatic missions, Abigail managed the family farm, raised children alone, and survived the Revolutionary War. Her letters to John contain brilliant political analysis and policy recommendations. In March 1776, Abigail wrote John the famous line, "Remember the ladies, and be more generous and favorable to them than your ancestors." She advocated for women's property rights, education, and legal protections against abusive husbands. Though John dismissed her ideas, Abigail planted seeds of American feminism that would grow for 2 centuries. Dolley Madison saved American democracy itself. On August 24, 1814, during the War of 1812, British forces marched on Washington, D.C. President James Madison evacuated to join military commanders. Dolley remained at the White House with a spyglass, watching the enemy approach. As British soldiers came within sight, Dolley refused to leave until she secured national treasures. She directed servants to cut Gilbert Stuart's iconic portrait of George Washington from its frame. She saved state documents, silver service, and red velvet curtains. Only when British troops were literally at the gates did Dolley finally flee. Hours later, the British burned the White House. Dolley's courage saved irreplaceable symbols of American democracy. After the war, she lobbied Congress to rebuild the White House in Washington rather than relocate the Capitol elsewhere. Mary Todd Lincoln suffered immensely during the Civil War. 4 of her brothers fought for the Confederacy, leading to accusations she was a Confederate spy. Despite this, Mary visited Union hospitals constantly, bringing food, flowers, and encouragement to wounded soldiers. She organized fundraisers for medical supplies and soldiers' relief. Mary also wielded political influence, recommending appointments to her husband and attending cabinet meetings, unusual for the era. However, the war destroyed her mentally. She witnessed massive casualties and lost her son Willie to typhoid in 1862. After Lincoln's assassination in 1865, which Mary witnessed, she never recovered. Mary was eventually institutionalized, a tragic ending for a woman who endured unimaginable trauma. Edith Wilson became the most powerful First Lady in American history during World War I and its aftermath. After America entered the war in 1917, Edith led conservation campaigns. She instituted gasless Sundays, meatless Mondays, and wheatless Wednesdays to conserve resources for troops overseas. She brought sheep to graze the White House lawn, eliminating need for groundskeepers who could serve in the military, and auctioned the wool for the Red Cross. Edith volunteered rolling bandages and knitting for soldiers. But her real power came after September 1919, when Woodrow Wilson suffered a massive stroke while campaigning for the League of Nations. Edith essentially became acting president for the final 17 months of Wilson's term, though this was kept secret from the American people and Congress. She controlled all access to the president, decided which matters were important enough to bring to his attention, and may have signed documents in his name. Historians debate whether this constituted a constitutional crisis or necessary crisis management, but Edith Wilson unquestionably wielded presidential power. Eleanor Roosevelt completely redefined what a First Lady could be. She transformed the role from ceremonial hostess to active political force. Eleanor gave press conferences, wrote a daily newspaper column, My Day, delivered radio addresses, traveled constantly, and advocated forcefully for progressive causes. She championed civil rights, women's rights, workers' rights, and economic justice decades before these became mainstream issues. During World War II, Eleanor became FDR's eyes, ears, and legs, traveling where he physically could not due to polio. The day after Pearl Harbor, December 8, 1941, Eleanor addressed the nation via radio before FDR's famous Day of Infamy speech to Congress, calming fears and rallying support. She served as Assistant Director of the Office of Civilian Defense, organizing home front preparedness. In 1942, Eleanor made a dangerous trip to England during active bombing campaigns, visiting factories, hospitals, and military bases. She spent time with wounded servicemen, writing letters to their families. In 1943, Eleanor made her most remarkable wartime journey to the Pacific Theater. Military commanders initially refused, calling it too dangerous. Eleanor lobbied FDR relentlessly until he agreed. Wearing a Red Cross uniform to reduce luggage, Eleanor flew to Australia, New Zealand, and 17 Pacific islands, including the combat zone of Guadalcanal. During her Pacific tour, Eleanor visited over 400,000 soldiers in hospitals, mess halls, and camps. She insisted on seeing wounded men in field hospitals, walking among beds, and offering to write families. Admiral William Halsey, initially opposed to her visit, later said she accomplished more good than any other person or group of civilians that passed through my area. All 4 of Eleanor's sons served in combat during World War II, giving her genuine solidarity with military families. Her tireless advocacy made her the most active wartime First Lady in history. After FDR's death in 1945, Eleanor continued her political career as U.S. delegate to the United Nations. She chaired the committee that drafted the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948, arguably humanity's most important document after the U.S. Constitution. Eleanor Roosevelt changed America by proving that First Ladies could be powerful political actors in their own right. Jacqueline Kennedy changed America through soft power and cultural diplomacy. Jackie transformed the White House into a showcase of American art, history, and culture. She led the first televised tour of the White House in 1962, watched by 80 million Americans. She established the White House Historical Association to preserve presidential history. Jackie brought world-class artists, musicians, and intellectuals to White House performances, elevating American culture on the global stage. During the Cold War, Jackie's goodwill tours served as crucial soft power. Her 1961 trip to France with JFK was diplomatic triumph. Jackie spoke fluent French, charmed Charles de Gaulle, and captivated the French people. JFK famously introduced himself as the man who accompanied Jacqueline Kennedy to Paris. Her cultural diplomacy strengthened vital Cold War alliances. After JFK's assassination on November 22, 1963, Jackie's grace and composure during the funeral helped a traumatized nation grieve. The images of Jackie in her blood-stained pink suit, of John Jr. saluting his father's coffin, became defining moments of American history. Jackie carefully crafted JFK's legacy, including the Camelot narrative that shaped how Americans remember his presidency. Lady Bird Johnson championed environmental conservation and beautification. Her Highway Beautification Act of 1965 limited billboards and junkyards along interstate highways, preserving natural beauty. Lady Bird's beautification campaigns planted millions of flowers in Washington, D.C. and cities nationwide. More importantly, Lady Bird was a savvy political operator and key advisor to LBJ. She attended political strategy meetings, campaigned independently, and owned a radio station that made her wealthy. During the divisive Vietnam War, with both her daughter's husbands serving in combat, Lady Bird maintained support for troops while facing intense protests against her husband's policies. Betty Ford changed America by speaking openly about taboo subjects. In September 1974, 1 month after becoming First Lady, Betty was diagnosed with breast cancer. She chose radical transparency, publicly discussing her mastectomy in detail. At the time, breast cancer was rarely discussed publicly. Betty's openness led to massive increase in women seeking mammograms and breast exams. Doctors estimate her advocacy saved thousands of lives by encouraging early detection. Betty advocated for the Equal Rights Amendment, supported legalization of abortion in Roe v. Wade, and discussed premarital sex and marijuana use candidly on 60 Minutes. Her progressive views shocked conservatives but inspired feminists and modernized the role. After leaving the White House, Betty publicly admitted her addiction to alcohol and prescription painkillers, entering treatment in 1978. She co-founded the Betty Ford Center in 1982, the most famous addiction treatment facility in America. Betty's courage in discussing addiction removed stigma and encouraged millions to seek help. Hillary Clinton attempted to change America through active policy role. Bill Clinton appointed Hillary to chair the task force on national healthcare reform in 1993, the first time a First Lady led major policy initiative. Though the effort failed due to Republican opposition, Hillary established that First Ladies could pursue substantive policy work. She advocated for children's health insurance, which eventually became SCHIP. Hillary delivered her famous Women's Rights Are Human Rights speech in Beijing in 1995, galvanizing global women's rights movement. After leaving the White House, Hillary became Senator, Secretary of State, and presidential nominee, the most successful post-First Lady political career in history. Michelle Obama changed America by being the first African-American First Lady. Her presence in the White House was profoundly symbolic for millions of Black Americans who never imagined seeing someone who looked like them in that role. Michelle's "When they go low, we go high" became rallying cry for dignity in politics. Her Let's Move campaign fought childhood obesity through better nutrition and exercise programs in schools. Michelle's advocacy for military families through joining forces, co-founded with Jill Biden in 2011, provided unprecedented support for veterans and families during the Iraq and Afghanistan wars. Joining forces helped hundreds of thousands of military families with employment, education, and wellness. Michelle also became cultural icon, appearing on magazine covers, in popular media, and as fashion influencer. Her sleeveless dresses sparked national conversation about formality and race. Her vegetable garden on the White House lawn promoted healthy eating and sustainable agriculture. Michelle's memoir, Becoming, sold over 15 million copies, making her one of the most successful authors in history. Jill Biden changed America by continuing her career while serving as Second Lady and First Lady. Jill is the First Lady to maintain full-time employment outside the White House, teaching at Northern Virginia Community College throughout Biden's vice presidency and presidency. This normalization of working women in the White House reflects modern American families. As military mother whose son Beau served in Iraq, Jill brought personal understanding to military family advocacy. She revitalized joining forces, visiting military bases globally and advocating for military family employment and education. When Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022, Jill made a surprise visit to Ukraine on Mother's Day, meeting First Lady Alina Zelenska in active war zone, demonstrating American solidarity at great personal risk. From Martha Washington nursing soldiers at Valley Forge to Jill Biden visiting Ukraine during war, First Ladies have shaped American history through courage, advocacy, and power. They saved national treasures, drafted human rights declarations, destigmatized disease and addiction, championed civil rights and women's rights, conducted cultural diplomacy, led policy initiatives, and represented American values globally. These women changed America forever, often wielding more influence than many elected officials. The title First Lady may sound ceremonial, but in the hands of these extraordinary women, it became a platform for transforming the nation.